Could new measures to combat the spread of that new COVID variant bring chaos back to the classroom and yet more disruption to children's education? That is the fear expressed by one leading critic of new rules, which has been announced to stop the spread of Omicron. The Tory MP Steve Baker was reacting to the news that any close contact of someone testing positive for this new variant will have to self-isolate for 10 days, and any contact includes children. Let's talk about the consequence of that and other changes that have been made to the Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, Dr. Mary Bousted, who's joining us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start with that, if we could, Mary. That could mean, couldn't it, a lot of children off school again. Real difficulty for working mums and dads, I've no doubt.
Yeah, it's a real worry. The last thing that anybody wants, certainly teachers, the last thing they want is more disruption in schools. It was a terrible time previously, and it makes education really difficult to have large numbers of pupils at home and the rest in school. I mean, it means that teachers are teaching in school and trying to prepare online lessons for those at home. And we know that the best place for children and young people is to be in school. So it's really important that we do all that we can to stop the spread of the virus and of this new variant in schools.
Well, let's then turn to what can be done to stop the spread. One of the changes that's being introduced in England is face masks, not in the classroom, but for children and also young people and their staff when they're walking about a secondary school. Do you welcome that?
I do welcome that, yes. I think that's the start of the measures that need to be taken. But I have to say that we are disappointed that mask wearing has not been reintroduced in secondary schools in classrooms as well. If you were on Twitter last night looking at teachers, just asking a very simple question, does COVID recognise the difference between a corridor and a classroom? Clearly it doesn't. And classrooms are communal places where young people and their teachers spend the majority of their time, and COVID will not recognise the difference between a corridor and a classroom. And so we had mask wearing in secondary schools. When we returned to school, it was stopped in May as part of the Freedom Day. Mask wearing in secondary schools has been retained in Scotland, and we know that's the second most effective way of stopping COVID transmission. The first most effective way is effective ventilation.
And how common is that now, Mary? Because obviously as the winter comes, it gets trickier, not impossible, but trickier to simply throw the windows open. How many schools are able to give proper ventilation?
Well, I don't know that. And most worryingly, no one knows that. That's not data that we have. But you're quite right. The idea that in this current weather, you can just simply throw the windows open and just freeze is ridiculous. So we have been asking for months now to have proper HEPA ventilation units in classrooms where there's poor ventilation. The most we've got is CO2 monitors, which will diagnose whether there is ventilation or not, but not provide the solution.
Yes, they usefully tell you, don't they, as it were, where, what level of air circulation. They're quite cheap. You can get them on the internet if you want them in order to tell. We use them in the studio, in fact, when we came back here. Answer, if you would, Dr. Bousted, though, the fear of that Conservative MP, Steve Baker, others talking anonymously to the papers today, who say, look, what really matters is children getting a decent education. And I think what they would say to you, if I may, is the unions have always been on the side of locking down more, of being overcautious and not putting the priority they should on making sure kids get real quality teaching time.
Well, I would say that is just a charge which is completely untrue. The unions have been on the side of safe schools, of introducing the measures that will keep education going and keep schools open. We wrote to the government and set out a plan to keep schools open safely at the beginning of the pandemic, and they didn't adopt nearly any of the measures until months after they should have been adopted that we suggested. It's been clear for a long time that the main way that COVID is transmitted is through airborne transmission. So why is it that we don't have ventilation units in classrooms? Why is it we don't know how many schools can ventilate their classrooms properly? And what we want to do is adopt the measures that keep schools open, because frankly, that's where my members want to be, and they want to be in classrooms educating children. And as for us being overcautious, listen, we've ended up with secondary school children having the highest rate of infection. We've ended up with teachers 38% more likely than other professions to be infected with COVID. The way you keep children in school is to reduce rates of infection in school, and that's what we want to do.
Dr. Mary Bousted, thank you very much indeed, General Secretary there of the National Education Union.